and right.
Got my snack?
To order again. It is now 5:13. We've gone through roll call. We've gone through the approval of the agenda. So actually, our next item would be our invocation. You would help us with that, please?
Yes, sir. Let's all bow our heads this evening. Lord, I come before you today thanking you for being in the same room with so many great people. I know that there's a lot of things here tonight on the agenda, but I know you have everything in your hands and in control. So I ask you tonight to open up the windows of heaven upon this group as they go through their session, allowing them to make decisions that will benefit this community and the things around it. That you pour out your wisdom upon them. Things will not only get solved, but they'll be better and greater for this community. So I thank you for taking control of this meeting tonight in each and every one of our tongues, that we will all be able to express our feelings and the things we are trying to get across with one another's understanding. So I ask you to be with each and every person here tonight as we go through this meeting in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now please stand and join us with our Pledge of Allegiance. Brian Axworthy, would you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We are at our public comments section of the meeting. We have 3 people signed up to speak. Jay O'Neill. Yep, please state your name and address. And I would remind you that microphone is not for the volume in this room. That's strictly for live stream. So if you'd speak loud enough that we could all hear you without a microphone, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, I'm Jay O'Neill. I live at 914 South Charlo Drive. That's way, way southwest, Pueblo West. And anyway, I'm talking to you about OHVs again. 2 weeks ago I was here. Anyway, first thing I thought I know Miss Peter, I sent her 2 videos from the last 2 weeks. One showed what I go through pretty much on a daily basis with dirt bikes heading out to the hills right behind Fire Station 2. And then, which was very impressively and loud, one of them was doing a wheelie for you. She probably saw that. And the other one was actually that area around the hill. There was probably about, I would say, 10 to 20 bikes just going crazy over there. And I could hear that from my house. Bird's eye view, you're probably talking half mile. I can still hear that from my house. So anyway, in December, we're talking about driving in my neighborhood, and I'm sure everybody here that's in Pueblo West has driven and seen something similar. It's not only in my neighborhood, but I was driving down my road, dirt road. I normally do about 20 miles per hour. I noticed to the left there was a dirt bike getting ready to pass me on my left. And I looked to the right, anyway, there was another one. They were passing me from both sides. That's on my road on Charlo. And then 2 weeks ago, I was leaving home, doing about 20 miles per hour, and I knew there was a pack of them across the road of something. Anyway, here comes, doing about 50 behind me, and I'm doing about 20, 15 to 20. Here comes ATV and 2 dirt bikes right on me. I could have slammed my brakes on and taken out 2 of them, but I didn't do that. I did feel somewhat threatened by these kids on these dirt bikes. Last week, again, same house, same general area along Galileo. I knew that the wife had said they had left. I went Galileo way, going to Carrizo, McCulloch and all that. Anyway, I met a dirt bike going about 50 miles per hour coming toward me. Again, a legal dirt bike, I could barely see him. I was slightly on my side of the road. But again, going at least 50 miles per hour. A friend, another federal law enforcement, he was riding his bicycle just north and east of us. Dirt bikes. He met dirt bikes. He was by our substation on his bike. There was a dirt bike right in front of the substation on one wheel doing a wheelie, and there was two deputies over at the cemetery, the mortuary place. Had to see him. I mean, it made all kinds of noise. They did absolutely nothing. Anyway, again, it's all over Pueblo West. We are going to have some issues with my 36 years military police and, a little bit of law enforcement in me. I can tell you our law enforcement needs to do something for us. We need a MOU, we need something where our law enforcement does something instead of nothing. And right now they are doing nothing for us, as far as my estimate. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jay, did you see any of those vehicles with license plates on them?
No, they're all dirt bikes. I know what you're talking about. I know what a enduro is. They're not street legal.
So Jennifer, I'm sorry I can't read your last name. McDonald, you're up.
We're gonna work together.
You're going to defer.
Yeah.
I get it. Just state your name and address, please.
I'm Mike Palumbo, 1415 North Maverick Drive.
And I'm Jennifer McDonald, 1409 North Maverick Drive, and we're from the Pueblo West.
So you guys are doing this together knowing you're only supposed to have 3 minutes, but now you get 6, right?
Yeah.
We don't want any.
We don't want any, but
We just signed up in case you had questions for us for
Gotcha.
the whole reserve thing.
because we
Gotcha.
we are part of the reserve. I'm the treasurer secretary.
And I'm the vice president.
The president could not attend today, so we didn't know if you guys had
So
any
if you-
questions in regards to it.
So if typically this is for citizens' comments, so we're not really prepared to.
So I know that our comment is knowing if that's what you are going to do. We're under the impression that the HOA stopped with our lots and would not be a part of that vacant lot that's being sold, the 500 acres. But also knowing that we went in there knowing that the covenants and the things that were promised in the beginning, we want to be able to be respectful and keep those things in line to our covenants and not bring down the values of our home. Meaning that if it is going to get developed with houses, it should abide by the 5-acre lots that have already been plotted over there and not allow the modulars and the homes. It should be to the standards that we have, because when this was set up in 1997, it was supposed to be a whole development with a fire station along with the park, and it was supposed to be an upscale community, and we only have 21 lots, but we have kept those covenants and we have kept those guidelines for building. Everybody in that reserve has a full semi-custom home, over 2,000 square foot, side loading garage, and there are different things that we have to adhere to, and we do pay HOA fees. So our concern is that lot being developed in a way that would negatively impact the reserve, because it is a nice community.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any online comments to read? No. Okay. So next item is director's comments. I'll start with Bill Vickers,
I don't have any right now.
Joel Mahaney.
I don't have any either. Thank you.
Director Gray?
I do. A little positive note tonight that I guess Lugnuts at Pueblo West had a card deal for a kid. I guess is having some health issues. I think his name's Bryson, I believe. That was great to see that, the outreach from everybody that come in there. I guess there was over 100 cars, I guess, that came by his house, dropped off gifts. I think that's great to the community. Makes me proud to be part of Pueblo West when I hear things like that. So, thank you.
That's good.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Brian Axworthy.
I don't have any comments at this time.
And I have none, so we can move on to the approval of the consent agenda. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next item is, introduction of new employees, Bree Manvione. You guys are switching up on me. We got teamed up at the podium for citizen comments, and now you're not. Now you're going to be Bree.
I'm going to be Jess, actually.
At least I didn't say. At least I didn't say.
Good evening, board. Katrina Peter, Chief Administrative Officer. I am presenting our newest employees to the district. Our first one actually is Bree Magnone. I miss Magnoni. So if you want to come up, Bree. So Bree actually took the position of district clerk. Bree holds a bachelor's of science in mass communications and public relationships from Mansfield University of Pennsylvania. She comes to us with over 14 years of experience as an executive assistant, supporting high-level executives. Bree most recently worked with the Colorado Lottery as an executive assistant and commission secretary. We're super excited to have you on board. Did you want to say anything? I'm excited to be here. Perfect. Okay, so we have two other employees that were not able to make it tonight to be welcomed by the board. First and foremost is Jacob Lucero, who's a parks maintenance technician. Jacob comes to us with over 5 years experience in construction and grounds maintenance. Jacob most recently worked as a project manager for JAL Properties and as a seasonal grounds maintenance tech for CSU Pueblo, where he gained knowledge in maintenance and sprinkler repair. So welcome, Jacob. And last one is Roger Vassar. Roger comes to us with over 20 years of groundskeeping maintenance experience. Roger worked with us last summer as a seasonal parks maintenance technician through Express Employment and jumped on the opportunity to become full-time. So we're excited to have him on board as a full-time employee. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina.
So that concludes the introduction of employees. Special presentations. Proposed water conversation and contingency plan rates presented by Jeffrey D. Herrera.
Conservation.
Good evening, President Kroll, members of the board. Jeffrey D. Herrera, Deputy Director of Utilities Administration. So in our water rules and regulations, there's always been an Article 12, always, for at least 10 years, about water conservation and rates that would be effective if we got to those certain stages. There are 5 stages. We've never enacted past stage 1, and that was the past 2 years. So it does not appear a rate hearing ever occurred to actually make those rates effective should we ever have to use them. So that's what we're starting that process here tonight. And I have included in the packet. Can you go up one page, I believe? Oh, there is a spreadsheet, that one. And that shows what would happen if those rates were enacted for a customer. We just did one of 30,000 gallons. So you can see at the top, no water restrictions or stage 1 water restrictions, which we've had stage 1, 30,000 gallons of consumption. This is consumption only. This is not any other charges. It's just consumption. $155.25 is what they'd pay right now. If we were to enact stage 2, that price goes up to $186.60. So the difference is $31 going from stage 1 to stage 2. And then if we were ever had to go to stage 3 water restrictions, a customer using 30,000 gallons would pay $280.65, which is $125 more than they normally would. So if the board has any questions, I'd be happy to answer based on those rates.
Questions?
Can you explain the the stages of the water restrictions so everybody knows and understands that?
Yeah, so stage 1 water restrictions is totally voluntary, and we've had great reception with our customers when we put that out. People cut back. That's probably why we've never had to go to stage 2 or stage 3, because we did stage 1, not this year, but I think it was 2022 and 2023. Is that correct? But we never got to the point of our water storage being so bad we had to get to stage 2. Stage 2 is mandatory, and you could see this would effectively, hopefully people would notice, and then by the time we get to stage 3, I believe people would notice $125 difference if they're using that much water. Hopefully they'd cut back, but like I said, these have never been charged before, so it's almost uncharted territory for us, but we believe those charges would stop people from using that much water.
So I guess what I'm looking for is an example of what would cause each stage.
Oh, and we do have that, but it's included it's a lot of pages down.
So
It is now Article 11 in the rules and regs that are, I'm sorry, Bree, are they attached to this? Yes, that. But if you go all the way down to Article 11 of that, basically stage 1 is in effect when we have 90% of water, 2 years of water usage in storage. Stage 2 is enacted, okay, that's where you're going. Okay, stage 2 is enacted when we're at 80% of water storage for a 2-year supply, and stage 3 is another 10% down, so 70%.
okay.
I have a question. Back to your 3 examples.
That's a long way up.
Sorry. All right. So explain how this works, because I'm seeing the same figures in every example. but
So yeah,
at
the
a
one,
different cost.
yeah, the 1 to 5,000 doesn't change in any of those examples, and the 5 to 10,000 doesn't change. What changes from stage 1 to stage 2 is only consumption over 20,000 gallons. That's why you see in the blue, that would be a new tier at that point in stage 2. The only difference is everything above 20,000. So anything 20,000 above, in this example, it's 20 to 30,000. It's 10,000 gallons.
So in the stage 2, the 10,000 gallons more than 20,000, you're multiplying. How do you get to the?
It's 1.5 times. That one's 1.5 times the 10 to 20 rate.
But where's it reflected in the chart here?
Well, it's 1.5 times only for what's above 20,000. So it's the blue number there. So instead of being 627 per 1,000 gallons, it's 941 per 1,000 gallons. So that 10,000 gallons is $94 difference.
I'm getting that. It doesn't show in there what happens.
Or not difference, but
after.
total.
It might be good to include the 941 so that.
It references it in the
Bobby, come on.
Yeah, in the rules and
so
regs
the
it says
audience
1.5
knows who's
times.
talking. We know who you are. Let the people watching this live stream know.
Robert Banham, Deputy Director of Operations, Utilities. So in the resolution, we didn't specifically spell it out in this stuff. It does reference Article 12, which I think is now Article 11. In case in the future we decide that the 1.5 punitive is not enough, it would be that we could adjust it based off of the rules and regulations at that time without going back into this stuff and them referencing this. So that's where it's referenced.
When somebody gets their what I'm getting at is somebody gets their water bill. It'd be nice if they can figure out why they're paying.
Oh, it'll show on the water
that
bill. That
extra-
tier would
yeah,
be
That tier will actually show
yeah.
up and the
Yes.
cost of that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, while you're up there. As I recall, when we Katrina redid all of the rules and regs and whatnot, and there was a lot of stuff about this phase 2 and phase 3 and whatnot, and there was a change in there, and that was all done with a public hearing, wasn't it?
Well, those actually we've never brought those back for, that's later on in this meeting, correct, Katrina? Yeah, those were never actually adopted or brought to the board to be voted on.
Yeah,
We've been doing this work for almost a year now.
I think it's been over a year actually.
Over a year.
So we ended up approving the bylaws separate from the rules and regulations because we realized that we had to go back before the board to do a public hearing and proper 30-day notice to allow the public time to provide input. So the bylaws have been approved. The rules and regulations are what we're moving forward with today. But the public hearing is specifically for the contingency water rates for in the event that we go into water restrictions, because that requires the 30-day notice plus the public hearing. The rest of the rules and regulations does not require any public hearing, but we want to move to adopt the rules and regulations as a comprehensive document by April 28th. Does that answer your question, Director Mahaney?
Well, so what we had a public hearing on was the bylaws and not the rules and regs.
Yes.
I thought they were combined.
I think at that, if I recall correctly, I think at the time it was combined, and then we realized that we wanted to move forward with it separately because we needed to ensure that there was a proper 30-day notice. And there was aspects of the rules and regulations that we were still refining. The bylaws was a complete document and it was ready to go. So I can't recall if we did a public hearing for the bylaws.
I don't
No,
think so.
we didn't.
No. Christian J. Hine, District Manager. So Katrina's right. Essentially, we've been ready to approve the rules and regs. One element of that are these water restrictions, which requires the public notice. So we're trying to accomplish both to be able to approve that. So this public hearing is specific for how the water restrictions affect the water rates, but it's part of the rules and regs, which will also be adopted, with those changes.
I've always been concerned about the where did it come from deal, and the answer that I always get is that's the way we've always done it. We go to phase 2 when we're at 90% of 2-year storage, and phase 3 at 80%. Now, this last year, we acquired some direct flow rights in effect. We leased water from Pueblo Water that gave us an abundance of water, and all of a sudden we had a surplus. And we ran some of it down the river because we had no place to put it. Now, we should look, I would like to see when we have this public hearing, somebody explain what this, where we get this 80%, 90% causes a trigger on something. Has nothing to do with snowpack, it has nothing to do with the availability of water from the Board of Water Works and at what cost and that kind of thing. Seemed like that's just kind of a blanket way of doing it that isn't really effective, we found out this past year.
It's not effective 100% of the time, no, but Pueblo West does not have direct flow water rights that we own, so it makes the situation more storage based.
We had one applicant for the district manager's job that said we have a large flow of direct flow rights in Hill Ranch. And every time I bring that up, which in my opinion, we should just run that down the river and that would be our base delivery. We come into this, we want to transfer it uphill so we can get in bed with Aurora and Gain and a whole bunch of stuff. That direct flow right, I think we own it, don't we?
Oh yeah, and it might be worth doing once those rights are fully available to us. But right now, to put that in our rules and regs and count on it right now, I wouldn't do that until it's absolutely 100% available.
So we're not going to count on Hill Ranch then at all?
Not until it's 100% available. Absolutely not. No.
I think it's been
we
explained
count
that
on
we
some.
actually,
We count on a
1.5
proportion
times.
per year, but not all of it every year. No.
So, and here, the storage is to where we can have ample water supply during dry years. The other thing, when you were talking about snowpack isn't always a perfection, right? You have what actual percentage is actually water. You could have light, fluffy stuff that doesn't have a lot of water content, right? Compared to thick, heavy, wet stuff that we've had in the past. I don't know if snowpack is a good reference for us. Jeffrey and I have talked about having it maybe not a 2-year average based off of your tap, but maybe based off of a 5-year average of your consumption, what we actually pump up from the river. There's other mechanisms, but some of them are a little more finicky than other ones. And like you said, Joe, it's the way we've historically done it. It's been in the rules and regs for years and years and years. We have looked at different alternatives and trying to figure one that fits best for the district. As far as Hill Ranch water, when we take it and once it's perfected, it's going to be one of the trigger points that we can start counting on it reliably, right? And it's still based upon snowpack. So I just wanted to put that out there as well. It has been contemplated on other avenues for doing that as well. So
In the meantime, you actually trade that water for what, one and a half
it's a
times?
free exchange up, and then we get a 10% when we bring it back down.
Okay.
So
I don't think we spilled last year either, did we?
So last year we didn't lose any wet water. We did a lease with Bessemer Ditch, as the board approved last year at the end of the year for 3,000 acre foot. There has been, again, daily talks about a spill this year. There was no spill again this year as of 5:38 p.m. We have another meeting tomorrow morning to make sure, and then there's going to be another hard-pressed issue that we have to discuss, which is project water. Pueblo Reservoir was built for project water, and I know we're getting a little off topic, sorry guys, but so we may actually not have any storage capacity at Pueblo Reservoir, and that's where some of the other things come into play. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Board, any further questions?
No.
Okay. Moving on. Public hearing, proposed water conservation and contingency plan rates. Robert Banham. And you got to introduce yourself again.
Ask for public comment, right? That's about all.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I don't know what I'm sorry.
So,
Well, it has you as the presenter. I'm sorry. I'm just reading the directions.
I guess we'd like to open it
You
up
can ask for questions. You ask for questions.
do I need to read the public hearing? Like, I don't know what sorry.
I think at this point, Jeffrey, you've already presented everything that you were wanting to for that part of the presentation. We don't have anybody signed up for public hearing, so I think we are okay to move forward with our agenda.
As far as the public hearing, we can open that up to the audience as well. They don't have to sign up for that. So if anybody wants to comment on the presentation that our water team just made, you're welcome to do that. Sir? Would you please come to the microphone and introduce yourself, please? Would you introduce yourself, please, so that we know who you are, please? Would you come to the microphone and introduce yourself and give us your address?
What? I'm sorry.
Would you please introduce yourself at the microphone and give us your address? We're live streaming this, and no one knows who you are when you're talking from the audience.
Yeah. My name is Ed Workman. I live at 488 West Mangrum Drive, and I proudly have a Joe Mahaney sign in my yard. And my comment was, we can't see these charts from sitting back here. This is a public hearing. We'd like to have some information in our hands, maybe some handouts, or if this is available online and we could print it out and bring it with us, that'd be fine. But when you present these charts we can't see them. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Workman, just so you're aware, too, and just so the public is all aware, the packets are published online on Friday by 5 p.m. And so if you go online to our website and then pull up the specific meeting that you're looking for, you can pull up the report. But after this meeting, I would be glad to meet with you and show you how. That way you do have the all the documents available for you to inspect and read before the meetings as well.
Okay. There will be a second public hearing, right?
There will be a second public hearing on April 28th before the board formally votes to approve the rules and regulations.
Okay. Further questions? Further comments? So with that said, we can close the public hearing session of this item.
Next.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you, Robert. Let's move on to action items. Resolution 2025 authorizing the use of capital funds for the wastewater treatment facility UV system upgrade. Robert.
Okay. So in your packet, I attached a PowerPoint presentation. I have the scope of work as well as a resolution. So I will go through the PowerPoint presentation. This is, for our wastewater treatment facility for the UV system upgrade. So I wanted to point out some things for you guys. So this UV system was put back in 2001 timeframe, and when it was put in, about 2 years later, it failed. And currently, it stands at a critical point of failure. There's been multiple accounts of catching fire, which can potentially lead to compliance risks. We are needing to try to take immediate action to avoid disruptions and potential financial impacts on the wastewater plant. As I said earlier, the UV system has caught fire multiple times. It's a safety risk for our employees and staff that we have down there. We are often required to come up with improvised solutions to keep the UV system running. It's reaching end of life mechanically and technologically. There's better systems out there that have like self-cleaning bulbs and everything else that also help mitigate some of the risks that are UV exposure that our staff come into contact with. And then it's also causing us to have increased maintenance cost and downtime. We have to hire a contractor, with it being electrical and everything else, to bring them in to work on certain capacities like the ballasts and certain items on that. Next slide. Risks of inaction. We could potentially have risk of injury for staff from the malfunctions. We could potentially catch the building on fire and then have to bring down a package plant. We could also have increased violations, which would be E. coli, which would be our tertiary treatment, which could impact with regulatory penalties and potentially reputational damages. We have to notify downstream users when we have violations due to E. coli. We have to let Pueblo Water know, as well as Mesa Water, any downstream user that could be affected before it gets fully diluted. Okay. So with the urgency of this, I'm recommending that we separate it from the wastewater expansion. This originally was in the wastewater plant expansion. With seeing the potential that it's going to take us multiple years to finish design and engineering and break ground on the wastewater treatment facility, that could happen in 27, 28 timeframe. It is fairly urgent that we need to get this situation addressed. And the point of this is going to be that we not only design for current needs, but also design it for future needs to where we could expand it. And then we are allowed to, with separating it, it allows for a faster timeline for us to get the UV project completed and focused execution on that project. And then funding. I'm here in front of you guys seeking funding from the wastewater capital project. And then we're planning on using, we'll create a different project number to where we could depreciate it eventually more than when we separate it from the wastewater expansion project. And then we will come back in July or August for the budget amendment to where it reflects in the budget. And then going back to the benefits of upgrading now, staff again, loss of life, limb, building, and then we have long-term cost savings. The sooner we get it repaired, the less time that we have to spend on having contractors come out and staff time to fix the failing infrastructure. And then it will support future wastewater treatment modernization efforts. The next steps would be we're going to do the engineering assessment and design, see what we need for capacities and everything else. That'll be part of the design phase. Then we'll publish the IFB, and then once that's published and we get a dollar amount back, that'll come back to you. We're probably going to do both water engineering and when we do the construction, so we'll be back here 2 separate times for that. And then, like I said, we'll be back here in August for the budget amendment, and then we'll start planning for and procuring after approval. So this is a call to action for immediate action to prevent avoidable failures. And then the board support is essential for the safety and compliance of the facility. So, any questions?
Did you come up with a cost, a guess?
Yes, so design and engineer, we're anticipating around $150,000 for that. And then for the UV, actually putting the UV system in the ground, we're anticipating up to about 1.2. So it's a little bit less than that. Total project should be about 1.3. So,
Is this the UV lights that are at the end at discharge?
correct.
Okay. Well, certainly we're concerned about safety, and we don't want the facility to catch fire. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I guess the only other question that I might have is, hopefully in the future, if there are things that, this was installed in 2001 and it failed in 2003, why is it taking so long to address? And we could have budgeted some money along the way for this had it been a line item or something.
So there's two separate things that I could take into effect. So first off, the UV system, when it failed, it was more the PLC. So it was designed to where it fluctuated with flows. So the higher the flows, the more intensity we needed from the bulbs. And then on lower flows, it would decrease intensity to where we didn't need as much. What ended up happening is they bypassed the PLC, program logic controller, sorry. It bypassed the PLC, and then what it does now is it runs 100% of the time at 100% intensity, which is not what it's designed for, causing the bulbs to burn out quicker and everything else. I will tell you, and Libby has been working on this Libby's probably been working on it longer than I have, but trying to get the PLC back in function, it's costly to do that. They don't really have the programming anymore or anything like that, or the parts and components for it. It's not a great excuse, but some of us haven't been around that long.
Yeah, and you guys weren't here when this started, right?
Yeah.
So, not blaming you. Just in going forward, it'd be nice to take these things and kind of budget for them along the way. So,
I think that's our current stance on stuff, is get it addressed as it comes up and not try to push it off. One of the big things that's why I'm coming before you guys now is it's always been, we'll do it with the wastewater expansion. We'll do it with the wastewater expansion. Well, that's not a feasible idea anymore. So.
And this will be fully compatible with.
Yes. In the scope of work. In the scope of work that I attached, I want the capacity expansion, so I want to make sure that we could go up to the 3.6 MGD that we are expected to go to with our new permit, as well as support flows for the 1.8, which is our current plant flows. As well as at the end, we are looking to upgrade some of it, like get the self-cleaning bulbs and some of that stuff. So improve in efficiencies as well.
Thank you. And I ask questions not just for me, but for the public, so that they are aware of what's happening.
Hopefully I can address every question you guys have. So.
And we're replacing the PLC with newer technology?
Yes, the whole thing, it'll be a full PLC upgrade. One of the design criteria is that the existing one has to stay in place to where we meet compliance. And then we'll expand with that. So current system has to work to where we don't violate, and then we'll get the new system implemented and then pull out the other one.
So Robert, are you recommending review of this?
I'm before you. I have a resolution attached, a resolution authorizing the use of capital funds for the wastewater treatment facility UV system upgrade.
So you're recommending approval of this resolution?
Correct. It is an action item.
Let me ask you a question here first. Is this a single trough that runs through?
Yes, sir.
A lot of systems have 2 or 3 parallel troughs so that you can take one out of service and work on it while the other one is in.
We have different banks, so it's in line, but we have 2 banks, bank A and bank B. The first, if we need to work on bank A, we could take it out of service, pull it out, and then work on it while bank B is still in process in the trough.
So then we have 2 parallel systems.
The water's still going to go through the same effluent. We're just going to have different banks, more than likely, again, still.
So you're going to have people in there working on moving these bulbs while there's effluent flowing through the trench?
I will say that's probably going to be up to the design engineer on how they plan to make it to where we stay in compliance for the tertiary treatment.
Please ask them to look at a parallel system where you can take one completely out, dry it up, get in there and do all the work on it while the parallel one next to it is still in operation.
Oh, these come fully out, Joe. We don't have to be in the trough. These banks fully come out of the UV channel, out of the effluent channel.
Sorry, I think I understand the question. Okay. Hello. So you're asking if we can have 2 effluent channels side by side?
Right.
I think that would be more appropriate for the expansion, a conversation for the expansion. This project is specifically to replace what we currently have, not expand the whole building. So we can address that with the plant expansion if that's something we decide we think we need.
So we're gonna be spending $1.25 million and then come up with possibly a better system that says we shouldn't have spent that $1.25 million?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think redoing the entire building is not the priority at this particular juncture.
And if we still get the same effectiveness that we're getting out of this single trough, and we've had this for 20 years, I don't think that we've had as many recorded injuries for that necessarily, for the UV, working on the UV channel, as far as the risk for the wastewater treatment facility with like the violations and stuff like that. Public health and safety is a priority pretty much. And then with that, again, if we're talking about expanding the building, this 1.3, we are designing this to where we could reduce it, and efficiency in the bulbs should be potentially a smaller footprint, and then we'll expand it when we go into it. But I don't know if necessarily a second trough is going to be the answer, per se. I don't even think that was contemplated in the master plan, if I'm not mistaken.
We talked about it as an option because we knew we were going to have to do the UV project at some point. So we had kind of mused about it with JVA about expanding the operations building to the east to accommodate either a bigger channel or another one, whatever we decided at the time. But we hadn't really settled on how we were going to proceed with that yet.
Just as long as we don't have to scrap the system we're buying. We would.
Because it would be like an add-on, correct? From like what I went and seen the plant too, and like the bulbs they come out, so you just add bulbs as you increase your, as you expand your building.
It's too low.
The understanding that I have is this new UV system, we narrow the channel, it flow down, and then as we expand, we could potentially either do A, get a second channel, or B, open the weirs up again, and then we have the full flow of the effluent channel.
That makes sense.
And this is Libby. She's our
Sorry.
wastewater manager.
I always forget board meeting manager.
Any other questions?
That's all I have, thank you.
What's your pleasure?
So I'll move to authorize the use of capital funds for the wastewater treatment facility UV system upgrade.
I'll second it.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Robert, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Resolution modifying the Pueblo West Committee of Architecture's application and fee structure presented by Sean Winters.
Good evening, President Prohl, members of the board. Sean Winters, Director of Operational Support. This issue was brought to the board previously as a discussion item. We're bringing it back to you now as an action item. A resolution has been prepared with the proposed fee schedule being increased by approximately 9.6% to create sustainable revenue for the COA application process. I'd be happy to answer any remaining questions that you might have.
Board, questions?
I don't have any at this time.
I don't.
Is this public knowledge now? Have you heard any feedback on?
The feedback that I have heard, and we've had a couple open houses, was very not necessarily positive, but understanding what we're trying to do in terms of development pays for development. And so what we're asking for is simply to increase the fees to be sustainable to cover the costs of that program. So that's really why we're here.
That does bring a question to mind. So these fees mostly, would you say they mostly impact new applicants for construction or existing homeowners?
It's all new.
Okay.
Yes. This is only for people who would be applying for an application for development, whether it's single family residential, multifamily, commercial, a new fence, those types of things.
But fences, accessory buildings are usually people that already are here.
Yeah, but there would be a new accessory building, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
So the fees that are generated by new development are going this way. As we develop, when there's nobody else here applying for new construction, those fees are gone.
I think maybe we ought to define new development.
Well,
If
new
you-
home.
A new home is new development.
New-
And anything after the new home is being built, you're not counting as new development, and I understand
Yeah,
that.
they're the largest, they're the largest fees.
Yes, that's correct.
So, then at some point, I mean, your goal is to be self-sufficient as a department.
Yes.
At some point, more tracks are gonna come out of the covenant control at 90%. So I'm just
Okay.
wanting to keep everything in a perspective, I guess, that I don't know that you're gonna always be able to raise fees high enough, because as these things start to
Certainly.
go down, your fees for fences are gonna be astronomical if you're gonna try
Right.
to be
So,
self-sufficient.
so to be clear, after we reach the 90% build out, the district and the Committee of Architecture loses the authority to enforce, but we do not lose the authority to require them to apply for an application. We still retain that. It's just the enforcement that goes away from the 90% group.
In a 90% tract, do you collect fees for fences and
Yes.
accessory buildings?
Any new applications?
Okay.
Yes.
What
Thanks.
happens in a 90% deal when the guy finds out that they don't enforce it and he goes ahead and builds his structure? What happens?
That is a good question, because it is a violation of covenants from a standpoint that you did not apply for the application, which is required. I don't know, Carl, do you have any input on that? Once we get into a 90% build out, and applications are still required, if somebody does not apply and build something anyway, what is our recourse?
I'd have to look at the language of the rules, but if there's still a requirement that an application be made, you may have trouble enforcing the failure to get an application. I would really need to drill down on that.
It might be something to ponder.
Questions?
That's it for me.
What's your pleasure, Board? You're recommending approval of this resolution?
Absolutely.
I'll make a motion to approve the modification of Pueblo West Committee of Architecture application fee structure.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Item 3, a resolution appointing a committee member to the 6A Fire Sales Tax Committee. Brian Caserta.
Good evening, President Prohl, members of the board. Tonight I'm here to seek approval for a 6A applicant to round out our 6A Fire Sales Tax Oversight Committee to a membership of 5. Recognizing when we were reviewing bylaws and got the approval to adopt bylaws back, if you remember, in October of 2024, we realized that we had an even number of members. And it was like, oh, it's a good thing maybe we don't vote on very much. But nonetheless, we recognize the shortfall. Director Vickers, District Manager Hine, and myself, while we were reviewing applicants to fill the vacant seats that were already existing, made the determination to put this 5th person up there. And now I'm here tonight to officially adopt him into the Oversight Committee with your approval. The gentleman is Ed Brees. He comes to us with over 30-some years of fire service experience from Colorado Springs. He held numerous positions throughout the ranks in the department, and honestly quite excited to hear him and have him bring his knowledge to our group and as part of the Oversight Committee. So plain and simple, I'm here for his approval.
Board, questions?
Yeah.
Brian?
He was at the last meeting that we had, And, yeah, he seems like a very intelligent person. Knows stuff, fire stuff.
And he loves the joke. I think there's probably a joke on every corner. He is here tonight.
Well,
if
you
you'd
should
like
bring
to
him up.
Yeah, welcome.
come on.
Brian, did we go through any kind of a public requirement to ask if anybody else
Yes.
would like to be on it?
Yes, we went through a whole process. People submitted their applications online. I think at that time we had 8 or 9 applicants come through that Director Vickers, Mr. Hine, and myself reviewed.
So,
Say hi.
Hello, I'm Ed Brace, and I live at 277 West Spalding, so the fire engine mailbox that everybody's known for the last 30 years. So
That's you.
that's me.
I got it.
33 years with Colorado Springs Fire, having held many different positions, including emergency manager and a few others. So.
Well, congratulations. I think
Yeah.
we're going to vote on that here pretty quick.
I'll make a motion to approve Ed Brees to the 6A Fire Sales Tax Committee.
I'll second it.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Brian, thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mr. Brees.
Thank you.
Item 4, resolution authorizing filing of complaint in district court to initiate litigation for breach of covenants, declaratory judgment, quiet title, trespass, and nuisance proceedings pertaining to 984 North Matt Drive. Sean Winters.
Thank you, President Prohl. So this item was originally discussed at the December 9th, 2024 Board of Directors meeting. Tonight we're bringing it back as an action item. So tonight we have a resolution that has been prepared for board consideration that establishes that District General Counsel hereby authorized to direct and seek part of the action against Mr. Hines at 984 North Matt Drive for violations of the Pueblo West Declaration of Reservations. Additionally, General Counsel would be directed to continue discussions and negotiations with Mr. Hines before and after the complaint is filed, so that every effort is made to resolve the matter and to remove the encroaching structure and protect the district's easement rights without protracted litigation. So I would be happy to answer any remaining questions that you might have.
You guys have spent a lot of time with this gentleman.
We have.
Talking
Yeah.
with them and stuff, and I don't think we have any other choice but to move forward with this.
so basically, we just have a situation of a building built on an easement or something?
Yeah,
Tell us exactly what the guy did.
There is a structure that is built in a portion of a public utility drainage and equestrian easement. I believe it's we have a 25-foot easement back there, and it encroaches in excess of 10 feet, I believe. And our community development staff approached them while they were in the process of building the structure. At that time, the structure, I do not believe, had applied for a building permit, so there was nothing for us to sign off on. And I think in the end, they ended up getting a building permit, but it was well after the building had been constructed. So staff made every effort to try to correct the situation when they seen that it was occurring, and the property owner was reluctant to comply.
What flared that up was he applied for an electrical permit on the building is what he did, and there was no record of an actual building permit, and that's when it came through the Committee of Architecture at the time. And when he applied, he was already out, and he came in and would ask to move that, and he said I already had power to the building, so that's how that happened.
And I don't believe the fence was up either, was it?
Nope.
No.
That was up after.
After he was contacted and.
That's correct, and now that is a secondary violation that we will deal with later.
We're gonna ask him to move the building then?
That's correct. It would have been much easier to make arrangements when we first contacted him.
Board, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion to authorize the filing of complaint in district court to initiate litigation for breach of covenants, judgment, quiet title, trespass, nuisance proceedings pertaining to 984 Matt Drive.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Director Gray, just to amplify on your motion, those are the causes of action in which we would bring in district court. The relief that we would seek would include an injunction prohibiting him from maintaining that structure and to direct that it be removed. So that's the relief that we would seek. We would also ask the court for the district's damages, including attorney's fees, although those are sometimes difficult to realize in court.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Gotta follow the rules. Next item, SCBA Mask Grant Award for Fire.
Hello everyone, my name is Killian Bowman. I'm a captain on B shift at Station 1, and I'm here to you today hoping you guys will approve the accepting of funds we received from a Colorado State Division of Fire Prevention and Control grant. We're getting the grant in a total sum of $11,539.44 for the purchase of some self-contained breathing apparatus masks that we wear on our face for structure fires. I think as Chief Caserta might have outlined, some of those are aging or are already outdated. They are required to be replaced every 10 years. And so this grant money will help us replace some of those SCBA masks. There is one slight little hiccup. Scott's is the manufacturer we use to fulfill our need for SCBAs. They had a 3% price hike earlier this year. There's nothing we could really do about that. So the grant awarded amount is about $346.50 short of what we need. But honestly, we would need to purchase them anyway. So they're like 97% off instead of 100% off. There are very few stipulations. The only stipulations that apply to the grant money that we have applied for is to purchase the item that we asked for and then show proof of that purchase and receipt of the item, and then we'll be reimbursed by the state of Colorado. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Sounds like a win-win.
Yep.
So we're just gonna approve the increase 3%.
No, sir. I'm requesting you to approve the reception of funds from the state in the form of grant money.
And also the increase though.
Yeah, we would have to cover the $346.50.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's two parts to it.
That would just come out of their supply.
Correct.
budget.
It would just come out of the line budget for PPE, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the SCBA Mask Grant Award for Fire Department.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's passed.
Thank you.
We'll go there. All right. Let me see. And we're at number 6, resolution approving amendment to the contract to purchase property for administration building. Christian.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Christian J. Hine, District Manager. I'm here today to talk about an amendment to the contract to purchase 63 East Spalding as an administration building. A quick background is the district contractor for several inspections and work to be done to further evaluate the suitability of the building for the district's needs as a future administrative building. The major findings that were consequential and considered for suitability and thereby negotiations culminated as part of the commercial appraisal, which evaluated independent inspections as part of the final market value. Appraisal provided an as-is opinion of market value of $700,000 as inspected on March 25th, 2025. As part of the final determination and our contract, District's ability to object if the appraisal confirms the value is less than the purchase price or a new purchase price has been proposed of $710,000. This price is within 1.4% of the appraised value, which is within the suggested margin of error of commercial appraisals, which can be between 4 to 5%, along with a difference that is believably suitable for additional costs to the district for future leasing, moving arrangements if the contract were not amended or satisfied. We are recognizing and recommending the approval of this amendment. The board can discuss that or provide a different direction as far as that conversation, as this is something, as we recognize where our due dates are coming towards May, that we wanted to make sure this got before the board so they could have a conversation, either approve this amendment or provide further direction, and I'll stand by for any questions.
What I'd like to do, Christian, is make sure that we get on record the discussions that we had in executive session. So I let off an executive session, so I will lead this off and let you know my concerns with this appraisal. Again, I think it's been confounded from the beginning. I can't imagine that the Bank of San Juan's would send us one name as a reference for an appraisal, and I think it's alleged that this gentleman, John Anderson, does the lion's share of the Bank of San Juan's appraisals, so they have no problem entering the fray with a contentious situation with 63 Spalding. That's certainly their prerogative. I don't believe this appraiser should have had inspection results. He makes reference to a roof inspection. The roof inspection recommended a complete replacement of $140-some thousand. I happen to know that roof was remodeled 3 years ago with a Geico roof coating to extend the life of that roof. So I question the inspection process for one. And I think whole thing's a red flag. I don't think the district has acted in an honorable manner. That's just how I feel about it. And again, it's my son's appraisal, so I want everybody to understand that. I'm dealing with my son, Sam Prohl, who's the owner of this building, as I think everybody knows in the community and all of Southern Colorado so far. So that's how I would open up the discussion on this. Anyone else?
We occupy most of the building now. I understand there are 3 offices, suites, whatever, out on the west end of the building. Sam, the owner, occupies 2 of them, so I assume he's going to vacate those at closing. Are we going to be assigned the lease of the other one? We're going to buy it out? What's going to happen with that other lease?
No, as part of the contract, all of the tenants would be vacated by the end of April, I believe. And the indication is that regardless, at closing, all tenants would be out aside from us if we were to close for the property. So there's no other occupiers within the building.
And there's some concern, people that have more information about real estate than I, for one, about complying with American Disabilities Act if we buy it. What's the status of that? Let's put that in public record.
Sure. So we did get an ADA report back that discussed or just described certain things that would be required to bring it fully compliant. With that, those requirements come to fruition if there is a change of occupancy or I believe it's called minor remodel of 20% or more of the value of the total property, based on the IEBC, International Existing Building Code, for 2021. Right now, simple change of ownership does not trigger that change of occupancy, but if there was anything that required a change of occupancy, then those would become required. At this time, purchasing the building by itself with no further improvements has not been relayed to us that we would be required to bring it up to compliance. It would be if we remodeled or if there was a change of occupancy, which is not the same as change of ownership.
So we can occupy it as is and not suffer any additional costs if we so choose?
That's my understanding for the ADA and for the ADA inspection, yes.
So we're talking about $710,000. Whether that seemed high to me, but you know, I'm an old feller and everything's too expensive for me, so. But it's a lot better than the 950 or $1,000,001. So is there any time lag on that, offer to amend? Take it or leave it in 30 days, or?
Not at this time. My expectation in the conversation with the owner was that this was amiable or amenable, and so my intent was tonight to get that approval. If so, I would return back to him. We would sign that. If not, then I think we'd have to go further into negotiation on what that would look like.
Okay, no further questions.
Well, as everybody knows, I've kind of had reservations about this building from the start because I don't really think that it addresses our needs. Sure, I think we can make it work. But at what cost, we don't fully know the total impact of all the plans that we have for it down the road and with the building next door. Certainly the price of $710 is more palatable than the $950, but I'm still not convinced that it's the best move. I understand the need that the district wants to get out from paying the leases. That's $7,000 a month. A month or two or even 3 of making sure that this is absolutely the route that we want to go, because if we do this and a new board comes on board and they decide they don't want to build a building next door, where is this going to leave us? There's a lot of things that are unknown that I think for the public's benefit and the public's it's their money, that we are very cautious and very diligent about what we're about to do. The other concern that I've had all along was that the deciding factor was actually Doug's vote, Director Prohl's vote, to move forward with this, and I really had problems with that being the deciding factor of moving forward, since it is his son's building. So I think we have a new board coming on in 22 days. So I think the election is 22 days from today. They'll be onboarded by the end of May. Certainly the staff can bring them up to speed on what has happened, and a decision can be made relatively quickly. At that point, Director Prohl won't be on making the final decision if there is a split. I just think the whole thing optically looks better. And now we're bringing in the question of whether or not the appraisal was done correctly or properly, or who should have done it. And the whole thing, from my perspective, and I think from the public's perspective, does not look good. So although the price is better, I still know that bathrooms are going to need to be remodeled. We have sound machines outside in the halls on most of the offices to keep people from hearing what's going on in those offices. We have the Committee of Architecture that is actually working in the reception area of the building. We can make it work. There's no doubt, and they've made it work. But is that really is that all we're concerned with? Is make it work? I think we can do better. That's my 2 cents.
Dr. Gray. I think Christian's done an excellent job of his presentation of everything that he's brought to the table. He's ran a lot of numbers that, made a lot of sense to me and made a lot of sense to some other people. I think, with what's going out there in the commercial world, I'm looking at commercial buildings are 2,000 square feet less in size, for about the same price. And they're an open shell building. They're more like a store, an open store. So I don't see that price is out of line. What I would recommend is, with this appraisal, I'm all for transparency. Let's have an independent review of the appraisal. If the appraisal comes back in and says it's 700,000, it's great. If the appraisal comes in and says it's 500,000, hey, that's better yet. But if it comes back in at 950, we're being transparent and we're being given the person the price of what the house or the building is actually worth. I'm all for saving the district money, but I'm all in about what's doing the right thing morally, and I think that this needs an independent review of somebody that's totally out of the realm of this, because this place has been blowing up for so long, so many months, so many people have come and spoke on behalf of this building. I just think that, let's do some more due diligence, let's do a review. That's where I'm at with it. An independent review person, totally, and I would put that in Christian's hands to handle 100% yourself.
Director Ashworthy.
So, I'm of the opinion that if we didn't have any relationships with the owner of the building, we wouldn't be having this discussion. We would be hopping for joy for an appraisal that was $240,000 less than what we expected to potentially pay. So, I am not I'm not a real estate guy. I'm not a construction guy. I know nothing about appraisals and reviews of appraisals. From an ethics standpoint, I think that we should move forward with the LOI at 710. And if the owner of the building does not want to accept that or feel that the appraisal that we were given is righteous, then that person can get another appraisal. And then we can have a discussion on the variance. I don't think it's in our best interest to look for ways to offer more money for the building. I think it's up to the seller to ask for what he feels is right through another appraisal. That would be my opinion.
Okay. You know my feelings. I believe this appraisal is confounded from the beginning. There's been too much outside interference. And to Bill's note, I agree 100%. My son owns this building, and I truly believe, I've said it out loud, I'll say it again, if his last name wasn't Prohl, we would have owned that building a year and a half ago. So that's just sad. That's a sad way for this district to do business. And I'm not going to lie, I'm embarrassed. We should be held at a higher standard when we're the governing body of Pueblo West. So that's all I got. So with that said, it doesn't sound like there's any more comments. The chair would entertain a motion, I guess, to approve this amendment to the contract of purchase property administration building.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment to the purchase contract for 63 Spalding for a total price of $710,000.
Is there a second?
So now we're gonna amend the purchase price, but we're not gonna say whether we're gonna buy it at that price? What are we doing here?
It's the offer.
Explain that to Joe. Again.
So that motion was to approve the amendment. The amendment changes the actual contract. It's still a purchase to contract to purchase for that building on all the same conditions, but now it's at $710,000 instead of $950,000.
Okay. We have a
We have a motion on the floor, correct?
I'll second the motion to amend it to $710,000 to be considered for purchase.
In the form of an LOI, I believe, right?
It's an amendment to the contract.
Amendment to contract,
there is
okay.
a contract to purchase.
Okay.
That the board approved.
Okay.
This is amending that contract for that price.
Can I ask when the original contract went out of date?
It had a 60-day for its due diligence period. That would, I think, with its conditions for the dates, have come to exactly today. We did extend to May 16th because of the time it required to actually get on the slate of the folks who were doing the inspection for the survey, the environmental survey and appraisal. So currently it is signed by both parties till May 16th, I believe.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have a motion, a second on the floor. Bree, would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Gray,
No.
Director Axworthy,
Yes.
President Pearl.
I have promised to abstain from voting on this, as I've been accused once again of a conflict of interest.
Vice President Mahaney,
Yes to the amendment.
Director Vickers.
No.
We have 2 noes and 2 yeses and an abstention.
So it fails.
So Carl, help us with this.
I need to take a quick look at the law.
You still have to have a majority.
Would it be appropriate to make a different motion after he does his deal? Okay.
I would say if it ends up being a failed motion, which I expect it is, a second motion or another motion could be made and then could be voted on. If we continue, if we don't have any motions or any direction, then we may have to evaluate in a future executive session, discuss what the negotiations are to get to some form of consensus.
So let's wait till we have a full board.
There is a provision at 24-18-109 of CRS which says, and I will read it. Sorry, I'll do that again. There is a provision of law at 24-18-109 of CRS, subsection 3B. Well, I'll read 3A and 3B. A member of the local governing body of a local government who has a personal or private interest in any matter proposed or pending before the governing body shall disclose such interest to the governing body and shall not vote thereon and shall refrain from attempting to influence the decision of the other members in voting on the matter. But B says, a member of the governing body of a local government may vote, notwithstanding paragraph A, if his participation is necessary to obtain a quorum or otherwise enable the body to act, and if he complies with voluntary disclosure proceedings under 24-18-110. So in this circumstance, the president could vote to enable the body to act, either yea or nay on this motion.
We're talking about the motion that was just voted on, Carl, and you have to have a majority to carry that motion. That had nothing to do with conflict of interest. We've discussed that ad nauseum, and we all agree that there is not a legal conflict of interest, but there is a moral conflict of interest.
You're right. There is not a legal conflict of interest in this circumstance. So that is true, and that being the case, the motion dies on a 2-2 vote.
And I would just tell you, Carl, I appreciate you reading that revised statute, but I agreed with Director Vickers that I would abstain and step away from this, and I would maintain that.
Understood.
Okay.
Can I make a motion to put this appraisal under review? I'd like to have a third-party, independent person that's not conflicted with anything at all, take a good look at this appraisal, and if this appraisal comes back at 700,000 or less or whatever it is, let them give us what their unbiased opinion is.
I don't see any harm or issue with making the motion. The only thing I would request is who pays for that review as part of the motion.
It'd have to be the district. You can't force the seller to do it.
Well, the reason being is because of Director Axworthy's comments, just to be clear.
I think it would be appropriate for the seller to pay for that review. I mean, it's obvious that there is a question of the value here.
Well, it's not obvious.
We could take it out of.
Yeah, I think that's been the discussion. I know you didn't discuss it that way.
Well, it's
And
not
I'm sure
obvious.
Joe hated this building and now he loves it. I don't understand that either.
Don't put words in my mouth.
No, it's,
Don't
it's,
like it, I
it's
never
hard to
liked
do.
it, I never will.
It's, okay.
Now, the board decided that we would pursue buying it, and I voted against that. I don't like the building, it's an old building, it hasn't got enough parking in my opinion. So don't put words in my mouth, Doug.
I'm not. No, you voted for it, so.
All I
obviously
voted
you
for
flipped.
was to amend the purchase and sale agreement to reflect the appraisal of 710,000. That's what I voted for.
Okay, I get it. You've agreed to purchase this building for $710,000.
So I will say that on paying for that, we could put that in there as on the selling price of whatever the appraisal is. We could deduct that out of the selling price of whatever that fee is. If it's $1,000, $2,000, or whatever it is.
That would only work if we follow through with what it would be for the final cost.
Right. We don't know what that final cost would be.
I can't imagine it'd be more than the appraisal. I think the appraisal cost us $2,500, is that right?
Correct. 2,400, 2,500. If we ended up not following through with the contract for whatever it came back with, or if it was even delayed until the next board came forward,
That'd be just
we wouldn't
like
be able to, we'd need to identify, I think, seller or buyer as the
it would.
primary.
I mean, it would be just like we did our due diligence on an inspection. We paid for that, correct?
Did we get a second inspection? This whole thing smells. This objection was brought up again by Director Prohl, who again is the father of the owner of the building. Nobody else here objected to the appraisal. There was no concerns in the district about the appraisal. This is not right, folks. That this comes back, that we didn't get the sale price that we want, so now we're going to reevaluate it. I don't know what the public thinks about this.
I think we'll figure out what the public thinks about this. This is not about getting the price that we want. I believe this appraisal is conflicted, and that's my opinion.
I'll go back to my original statement. I think if that's the case, and if the seller feels that it's conflicted, then the seller should order his own appraisal.
Then we have an impasse because it's a tie vote. So help us move forward.
He can still negotiate. He still has the authority to negotiate.
If we can't make any further discussion or actions within this public session, I'd probably engage that we discuss negotiation or giving instructions to negotiators. I will have to look at it because I do not know what happens if nothing is given direction for, because otherwise the contract for purchase and sale exists and
For $950,000, right?
For $950,000, and the only options within that are to provide a notice or objection based on certain conditions, including appraisal or inspection. And I would need the board's guidance to be able to do that.
Well, I would make a motion that we do not buy the building at $950,000 at the asking price. If we don't do anything about this amendment,
I would probably encourage
the
us
price is still $950. We do not want to purchase that building at $950.
I would encourage us probably to discuss maybe in the instruction negotiators, but at the same time, that is the board's prerogative on how they would like to move forward with anything in this public session.
Well, you can discuss it in executive session, but you have to come back out into public session to make a decision. So why don't we discuss it in public session and make a decision?
There seems to be confusion on whether I like the building or not. I voted for amending the purchase and sale agreement, which we will vote on when it's in its final form. I voted to amend it to having a sale price of $710,000. I still expect when it comes back for a vote that I can vote yea or nay on whether we purchase it. That part, all we've done so far is authorize you to negotiate a final sale agreement, which the board will vote on in public session. Now, am I right or wrong on that, Carl?
My recollection was, and I'd have to look at the minutes, but my recollection was that there was approval of a contract for sale.
Yes, so the board in the district currently has a contract to purchase 63 East Spalding based on conditions within that contract. In that contract, some of those conditions include things like if the appraisal comes back
Yes.
less, where we can send a notice of objection based on that, and it would trigger further negotiations.
Right.
If the board does not provide guidance, and I'll have to confirm this just to be sure, but if I understand correctly, if the board does not provide guidance, then we have a purchase to sale man, I keep doing that. Contract to purchase their building for those conditions that are in there, and it would naturally follow through with what those conditions are currently at, unless objection is provided, which the board does, or an amendment is approved.
So if we made,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
if we made the, we went back to the approval of the amendment for the 710,000, then it would be in the seller's court to make any further.
Yes, so that amendment would be to approve how we move forward with it, assuming the seller was still agreeable to that, then it would be signed and approved. It'd be part of now the updated purchase and sale agreement. We would be purchasing the building at that price, so long as there were no other objections that were provided by the board, which at this time, I don't believe there are any that quite trigger that. And if the seller, knowing that this was approved by the board level, decides, in second thought, I'd like to ask for whatever secondary opinion, whether it's a review, whether it's a second appraisal, that may be how he would come back. And I would have to bring that back to the board to let them know that, hey, this did not go through. Here is now what is the next steps as we understand it. And we would follow the process probably as cleanly and diligently within the contract.
So, well, that was going to be my question. There is a contract, so if the sales price was accepted and all the due diligence timeframes have been met, then the contract is actually executed, right? So at its course, at some point, if there's an objection by the seller or the buyer, that's when your earnest monies come into play. You can reject it and you forfeit this money. So if we approve the amendment for 710,000, that is the new contract purchase price, and the contract would move forward?
Well, the amendment would have to be accepted by the seller.
Oh, I thought he already accepted it.
He did share that he was agreeable to it.
Oh,
whether he will, after signing
gotcha.
it,
Okay.
that is my.
Okay, so we're still a few steps down. So we're back to the motion to approve.
I think your motion was
My
to
motion was denied,
request
so-
a.
Yeah, so my motion was for an independent review of the appraisal. That's what mine was. Do I have a second on that?
Paid by who was the question?
I put that in there as contingent on whatever we could take that out of the sales price, if it sells. If not, we did a inspection that we paid for in our due diligence part, and an appraisal that we paid for, so I would say that this is part of our due diligence.
Well, then it's back open for discussion, right?
Yeah, open up for discussion.
So we're now
Well, you're first.
we're now working to increase the price to the seller as the buyer. Does not make sense, folks.
What if
That,
it comes-
in essence, is what you're doing, and you know that that's what they're playing on. So,
What if it comes back at 500,000?
yeah, I don't think that the current appraiser is inept. I don't think that is something that we're gonna have to worry about.
So do we have a second on that?
Tell me what I'm gonna second. Read it again. We're
Second, an independent review of the appraisal.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a second.
Can we have discussion about that?
Yeah.
I would like
Yeah,
to
we can
add that
discuss.
this should, independent review should be referenced, just like I recommended through Bree's ex-husband, through a completely independent bank that we don't deal with, nobody on this board deals with. Find somebody that's completely independent from this whole situation. If you're gonna approve this. And again, I will once again recuse myself in voting on any of this. So we have a motion on the floor. So Bree, would you please do a roll call vote?
Director Gray,
Aye.
Director Axworthy,
No.
President Pearl,
Recuse.
Vice President Mahaney,
Aye.
and Director Vickers.
No.
We have a tie.
So once again, I like to discuss the fact that I think it's in Sam's court on whether he accepts the 710, if we can move forward on that, or he asks for a different appraisal or the review. If he wants, more money for the building. I don't see why that's a problem. I think we've discussed this so many times that we wanted to go the least expensive route for the admin building so that we could funnel more money into the community in terms of Parks and Rec. I don't know why we're back to square one. I don't know why we're wanting to wait for another board when when this continues to be pushed to another board, pushed to another board, pushed to another board.
We've been discussing this for a year and a half.
Well, not just
actually,
this.
I mean, this yes.
This building, yes,
Purchasing
but
that building since November of 2023.
But the idea, and Joe's mentioned this before, the idea of purchasing a building has gone on for years. So I'm not sure why we're so headstrong about not moving forward.
Okay, I'll make a motion that you make the offer of purchase price at $710,000.
That just happened.
The amendment?
The amendment, and that's hung up at a tie.
Well, let's try again.
All right. I'll second it as soon as I hear the exact wording of the motion.
That we make the offer $710,000 for 63 Spalding.
Can I just clarify? Resolution to, because that's what the amendment says, approve the amendment that reflects that the offer now will be at a purchase price of $710,000 as part of the purchased contract. One day, I'll get that right? Contract to purchase. I guess.
Is that what the resolution says?
Yeah, essentially.
Do I need to change the resolution since we voted it down?
I think since you've had discussion, you could always re-propose it, especially if there's anything that has considered or changed the mind of anybody on the board who would then discuss it.
I don't think there's anything in our rules that keep you from reintroducing a motion.
I don't think so.
So that's my motion.
So I'll read.
Director Vickers, if I may. We have the resolution up there if you'd like to read it exactly how it is, if that helps.
Well, I don't want to read all that.
Well, no, it's the top line.
Okay, I'll make a resolution. I make a motion to approve the contract purchase price of $710,000 for 63 Spalding.
Second.
Call for roll call vote, please, Bree.
Yes. Director Gray,
No.
Director Axworthy,
Yes.
President Pearl,
Recuse.
Vice President Mahaney,
Yes.
Director Vickers.
Yes.
The motion carries. Okay, so I just want to take a minute. I think I have a solution for everyone here. As Christian pointed out, his meeting with Sam last Thursday, Sam's kind of over all this. I think he's tired of the contention, and he's ready to sell this building and walk away. and I share his same emotion. You guys win. I can't fight this fight anymore. I'm done being criticized. I have no conflict, as the statute says. So at this point, I will tender my resignation as the board of director here with the Pueblo West Metropolitan District. That's how confounded I think this whole thing has been. And I unhappily do that because I respect the people that I've worked with so hard, our water team. There you go, Joe. You guys win. I can't fight this anymore. I'm over it. I don't need it. And I'm done. We've had a clown show in this board meeting for 2 years. As I see the faces in this audience laughing at the way we carry on ourselves, and I can't be a part of it anymore. So I bid you all adieu.
Thank you, Director Pearl, for your service.
Thank you so much, all of you, all three of you. And thank you, water team, for putting up with my leadership. Sometimes it wasn't the best, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you for your
Thank you,
service,
Ron.
Mr. Cole.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Carl, did we sufficiently deal with item 6 on the action items?
Yes, we did.
That's the last action item. We'll go to discussion items. Well, wastewater plant discharge permit renewal discussion. Libby, and well, we have a whole bunch of people gonna tell us about this.
Okay. Good evening, Vice President Mahaney and members of the board. Robert Banham, Deputy Director of Utilities Operation, and
I am Libby Howe, wastewater treatment plant manager.
So we are before you. The utilities department has been working on this since last year. We got off of our administrative extension for our wastewater permit that expired in 2014? 2019, sorry, 2019. So with that, I also attached the 40-page draft discharge permit. With it, we just wanted to kind of give you guys some brief updates on what we're seeing is going to happen. We are currently we are in public comments. Those will be accepted until April 30th of this month. And then some of the big things that we have is we are going to be required to do an I&I study, which we actually already have this in the budget this year. We'll be trying to pursue that April-May timeframe this month, or by the end of April, early May timeframe to initiate that, as well as the increased cost for sampling. We have it's a pretty, how would you, it's a rigorous sampling schedule that's going to be occurring. So with that, as you can see, I'll let you actually talk about that, Libby, the sampling.
Sure. So 90% of our permit comes down to laboratory testing, because we have to stay in compliance with state regulation. So there's a lot that goes into that. The simple way to say it is there are laws, they break it down, put it on a piece of paper, and we have to test it at a certain frequency, for a certain duration, and meet certain limits. That's speaking to our effluent, what we put into the environment. So you can see on the picture here, our current permit is that gray box. Our laboratory testing it's those 2 columns in that gray box. That has been, as Robert said, that's been in effect since 2014. We've had some minor modifications, but all in all, it's been the same since then. The draft permit includes all of that same stuff, which is at the top in the green box, and then a bunch of new testing down at the bottom. So I think we came to, that's about, it looks small, it's written to be simple, but it comes to about 58 analytes that we're gonna have to add to our testing schedule. Currently, we test things approximately quarterly with some variation. Different things require different frequency. The state is suggesting that we test everything monthly or twice a week is kind of what we've gone down to. So that testing increase is partly in-house, partly contract lab, and it would amount to an approximate yearly increase of $27,000. So that's not something that we can look at them and say, no, thank you, and move on. We wouldn't have a choice. As Robert mentioned, it's in draft, or it's in public comment right now. So we're trying to combat that with some engineers to bring the testing requirements down. As an example, there are certain metals that we've never seen in our effluent that the state's requesting we test monthly. It just seems obtuse, I guess. If it's not there, it's never there. It's not going to be there. We're talking about nature, you know, so this is just kind of something to look toward the future. There are also some additional costs that come up. Somebody has to do this testing, whether it be sampling in the field, putting the packages together to ship them, any kind of retesting we might have to do, and then there's costs associated with shipping all of it. Or if something happens, a catastrophic snowstorm, we paid for shipping, it doesn't ship, we have to reship, resample, things like that. So.
Is there anything we can do as a board to help you?
I don't think anything right now at the point of the board. Like I said, we do have, we have obviously Libby, myself, Jeffrey. We also have an engineering firm who's dealt with a lot of the wastewater renewals, and the understanding that the people that are doing the permit right now, these people have been doing this a lot lately with what's been going on. They've been getting a lot of people off of the administrative extensions and throwing them into the draft permits and the not drafts, but in the new permit scheme and everything else. As far as from the board, understanding that when we come back for a wastewater budget amendment, when we did zero-based budget, this was not anticipated. The $30,000 just in laboratory testing, laboratory and shipping and everything else. Not including if we have to reship samples or anything like that. Just like the general understanding that this may lead to future costs and going on, as well as like Libby was talking about the wastewater treatment plant. This is also under this permit is also the collection system, and I realized that I used an acronym I&I, so it's inflow and infiltration into the sewer system. We have a lot of that going on lately, and understanding and recognizing that with this new draft permit, one of the deadlines was May, that we were supposed to have an engineered I&I report back to the state. That's going to be pushed back, obviously, since public comment was the 30th. But understanding that there's potential for additional costs on the collection side as well as the wastewater side. So we just kind of want you guys to have the general understanding of what's going on.
So, Robert, on the infiltration, is that coming in through the sewer lines itself?
It could be a combination of through the manholes when we have heavier rain events. We do see a lot of it when we have rain events. We're looking at potentially watertight lids. We're looking at, what are they called, Spike? The liners? Inner liners that could potentially slow down the inflow from that. As well as there are still portions out there. I know we came to you last year saying that we thought that we caught everything that was clay lined, sewer lines. That is not the case. So looking forward into we are currently in the process of trying to go through the entire system and identify every portion that is clay and get that lined, because that's going to be an additional cost. And then with that, with the I&I study itself and the I&I portion of this permit, understanding that we are going to have to reduce the I&I by 25% year after year. I don't think we'll ever get rid of it totally, but we do have to mitigate it as much as we can. So
what about the PFAS?
Oh, PFAS sampling. That's
Yes. So that's already kind of taking effect in the drinking water world. So it's, no pun intended, going to trickle down to wastewater, right? It's put on our draft permit to be tested monthly, and that's probably honestly the biggest cost increase. It costs about $6,000 a year to do monthly PFAS testing, and that's if we maintain the minimum and do just one sample a month like they're requesting. So I think right now my perception is that it's for future regulation, right? So test it now so the state can observe, so then they can make a judgment and put some kind of limit on people. But either way, it'll be part of our permit.
So, and that comes not from infiltration, that comes from inside the house, right? That comes from products and stuff that...
Yeah, so currently we have tested multiple times on our south outlet work connection, our north outlet work connection, and up at the treatment plant facility in the raw water, as well as locations in the distribution system. No, sorry. So we've tested our raw water supply multiple times and found it is non-detect, which is below the 4 parts per trillion.
Non-detect is below the lab's analytical testing limit, so even lower than that.
Yeah, below that limit.
Okay.
So yeah, there's nothing in the raw water that we could detect as of current limitations, but it is found in Teflon pans, all that stuff.
Right.
So makeup.
And we found it in groundwater at the wastewater plant.
Oh.
So it could be coming from I&I because it's in the groundwater, and if groundwater's infiltrating. Then
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had occasion several years ago to tour some wastewater plants on the western slope. And I think it was Rifle or Rangeley, I don't remember which one. They encountered the same problem of shipping in bad weather and having to retest. And if your test fails, then you have to test twice a week instead of once a month and all that sort of thing. They decided to gear up and do their own testing and get certified as a lab. And then some of the surrounding communities came to them and paid them to do the testing. Is that something we should consider? I think it is.
that is entirely up to you guys. If you want to pursue that, I can tell you my background is in contract laboratory work, and the instrumentation I was running when I left my most recent job to come here, one instrument costs $500,000 at that time, so 6-7 years ago, and it will test of what we need, maybe 10 analytes. So it is an enormous initial investment if you don't have the guarantee that somebody is going to help you on the back end. Does that make sense? So if we can't guarantee that we're going to have other people coming to us wanting us to do their testing, that initial investment is huge, and then we would lose hand over fist. I'm with you. I love lab work. I will do it. I will buy all the equipment gladly. But I don't know that it's in the best interest of the district to do that.
I wouldn't want to generate a $6,000 or $80,000 study, but could you write us up just kind of a thumbnail sketch of that possibility?
Absolutely.
Considering through the years we're going to change our minds several times, it might be worthwhile to take a look at that, and assuming that EPA is going to be stronger instead of weaker, which 2 weeks ago that wasn't the case, but maybe that's, well, I won't get into that. But anyway, yeah, give us some rough numbers, you know.
Absolutely.
And sometimes these $500,000 machines, the new ones are 10% of that.
Sure.
Could be. You never know.
Not with the new tariffs.
Can I ask a question on that? Is it okay in an email, or do you guys want us to come back and present as to the board?
Well, for myself, I like public information.
Okay.
So, yeah. Here's what you found, here's what you recommend. You know, we're gonna spend a couple $1 million down there, plus more, you know, so. Maybe.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't
Sure.
skip a step for you guys, so that's what I was that's what I was asking.
We're not gonna pursue it in executive session. So, yeah.
Is there any other questions on the permit that we could address?
Do you, on the permit itself, now, do you expect it to get successively worse every year, more restrictive, closer tolerances?
As new regulations emerge, we may have to treat or start to treat for different analytes. So there is a potential in the future, in the next 7 years or so, when we have to do another permit renewal. We will be doing potentially 3 really close. We're going to be doing this one, the UV, and then when we do the wastewater expansion. So there is a potential.
Yeah. And some of the smaller communities down in the valley have found that they can't meet the standards, so they've gone to zero discharge.
There's also been, the state has come back and reneged a lot of their PFAS sampling and everything else as well for the communities out east. Understanding that they're a smaller population and can't necessarily afford the testing. I don't think that Pueblo West will get the same concedences as some of those communities, though.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Thanks, guys.
Rules and regs update. Katrina.
Good evening again, Board. Katrina Peter, Chief Administrative Officer. So I will be opening up this as an intro, and then I will let our Utilities Department step in to review any other changes. As you know, as we spoke about earlier, we have been reviewing the bylaws, rules, and regulations for, I believe, over a year now. The bylaws was formally approved, I believe, at the end of last year, maybe in the beginning of this year, and now we are working on getting the updated rules and regulations approved. Within each of your packets and attached as part of the public packet is the revised document, and it highlights all the main key changes. At the board's direction, I did update the document to kind of remove a lot of the, I guess, less impactful changes, like changing the definitions from one section to another, just to try to make it to where the bigger changes stood out more for your review. Outside of the Utilities Department, we had 4 main areas that were updated. First and foremost was streets and roads. With the roads IGA, that section was basically repealed in full. Then we added the vegetative fuel and mitigation and abatement program. So that was added into the rules and regulations following the board's approval last year. Stormwater section, Sean helped draft sections of that based on stormwater best management practices, which I believe he took from state requirements. And then marijuana excise tax, there was some very, very minor changes within there. The big bulk of what was changed within the rules and regulations is the utilities from the Utilities Department. So I will let them speak on those changes. But does the board have any questions on what was outlined within streets and roads, stormwater, vegetative fuel mitigation, or marijuana excise tax? Okay.
No.
Jeffrey, Robert, if you want to.
So I don't know if I wanted to speak about any changes, but at least have a discussion with the board about maybe potential changes. So if you go to the next slide please. We noticed a lot of multifamily developments now in Pueblo West, more than there used to be. When I started with the department 6 or 7 years ago, there'd be 1 duplex on an R5 lot or maybe 2 duplexes. Now we see 2 fourplexes, so 8 units, or 3 duplexes, which is 6 units. We see more density there. So that does take up single family equivalents. Those take up sometimes 4 or 5 times the amount as a home would. So we don't know if the board has guidance to keep just letting that happen, or if they want to focus on single family homes, or if there's any even discussion to be had there. Right now, our rules and regs, bullet point 3 there, we have water rights dedications are required for developments 5 acres and above. There are a few out there happening right now as we speak, looking for water rights. Maybe that needs to be, that threshold needs to be dropped to maybe 1.5 acres, maybe 2 acres. But we wanted to actually bring that up for discussion. What exactly is one development? Sometimes we get a developer who owns 3 or 4 parcels that are adjoining, and they have one access road and they have one water detention pond. We consider that one development. So maybe the board has guidance otherwise, but we do consider those as one development. It's one person doing the entire thing. And does the district have the authority to limit the number of residences or the residential units on a multifamily lot? Maybe there's potential to only allow 4 units on a lot. But again, these are things that we're seeing.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, so I appreciate the concern, and I know you guys are doing this, but I think we need to just concentrate on working to resolve our water limitations rather than going after the small fish of
the low-hanging fruit. Yeah.
yeah. So you solve the big problem and it solves everything else. So let's focus on the bigger picture. That's my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, there's no changes in our rules or regs to any of that right now. It's just something that we wanted to bring up to the board. And then next slide, please. So our rules and regs say 1 tap per building, and if there were to be a second building that has plumbing structures that requires additional tap, there's debate whether that's the best approach. Maybe we can require a second structure to they share the same service line, but maybe you upsize it. You see that taps are a point of failure. Eventually, all of them will leak. They're not guaranteed forever. Do we want to have 2 close together serving the same property? Maybe we just upsize the other one. We do have provisions in our rules and regs to do that at the owner's request, but we've only had requests to do that very rarely, once or twice that I'm aware of, on the commercial side, not in a residential or small agricultural zoning.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to bring that up to the board too.
My opinion would be to share the water tap. Most ADUs, I mean, you figure a family of 4 can use 12,000, 10,000 gallons of water a month. So if you had another family of 4 on there, which is unlikely, but you're at 24,000 a month. A 3/4 inch tap can handle that.
Over the course of the month, yeah, but there'll be times when the demand is higher that it could max out a meter. But
I'd hate to limit the capability of someone to have an ADU on their property and invite their family to live with them. I just don't want to restrict that. I don't think it's right.
Yeah. You mean to force them to have another tap?
Or just place additional barriers that would prevent it.
Because you would be looking at another water tap, which would be 17,000, 18,000.
20-ish.
20-ish now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe more.
Or more if they wanted a 1 inch as for the other structure. Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing more and more of it for a reason.
Oh yeah, and I don't think it's going away.
Yeah.
But
there's a very good chance the board's going to re-look that water rate structure out on the top end. So a 3/4 tap, you can pull a lot more water through it than 2 houses need if you want to. So I think we can adjust the severity of what's going on to the district by the way we structure the rates. If somebody uses more than 20,000 gallons a month through a 3/4 inch tap, they can use 50 or 60,000 real easy. If we make the rate such that they'll think twice about doing it, that's the way to do it, not try to assign another tap or get into one more thing to go wrong.
Yeah, we can adjust the rates. One thing we did talk about internally as staff too, Jim had brought this up. There are other water providers that charge almost like a water resource fee for that other structure. It's not a full tap price. It's a portion of it, a ratio. Yeah. So that occurs too.
So there are a lot of things that we can consider in that.
Yeah. But if the board would like us to look at it, how that would affect rates, we can do that too. Yeah.
It looks like something we can do this fall.
Okay.
After the election.
Okay. Yeah. Like I said, there's no proposed changes to any of these things in the rules and regs of the art. We just wanted to make the board aware. But that's all I had for you.
Any other thoughts? All right, let's move on to Board of Directors election update. Katrina?
Good evening again, board. I'm actually gonna grab, I'm gonna steal this a little bit. Okay. I was gonna have it pulled up and then I did not get it pulled up in time. So again, Katrina Peter, Chief Administrative Officer. So I'm just prepared to give you an update on the 2025 election. We did have a total of 9 candidates that submitted self-nomination forms. Of those 9 candidates, we've had 1 that has subsequently withdrawn. So we have Christopher Pasternak, Brian Gray, Joe Mahaney, Chantry Rodriguez, Vincent Hall, Carla Jody Davenport, and Greg Roberts and Rodney Potter. Those are the individuals that are signed up or at least have submitted self-nomination forms. We do have an upcoming candidate forum that's scheduled for April 17th, which is this Thursday at Pueblo West High School. So I welcome the public to attend. It begins at 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium. So I believe the majority of our candidates have indicated that they will be attending, and this is a student-led forum, so they have generated some questions for our candidates, and it should be a good opportunity to kind of get to know the candidates that are running for election. I did want to say a special thank you to our clerk and recorder, Candace Rivera. Her and her staff invited us for a logic and accuracy testing. I think it was a week or two ago. And it was an opportunity for us to be able to test their tabulator and make sure it was working accurately, and just kind of get a general idea on what the election process looks like. This is my first time as a designated election official, and so their staff has been incredibly helpful in making sure that I am staying compliant with requirements, putting out proper notices, letting me know what the process looks like. We're just really working hand in hand, and I can't say thank you enough for their assistance as we work through this process. So our election is May 6th, 2025. Ballots should be going out today or throughout this week. So residents, just keep an eye out for those ballots. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to myself as a designated election official. My phone number is 719-367-1610. So I welcome any questions, any concerns, but I hope to see everyone at that candidate forum. It will be live streamed as well, so you guys can watch it either during the forum or actually afterwards on Facebook or our website. Does the board have any questions?
Did they give us any idea what it's going to cost this year?
For the election?
Mm-hmm.
So when we ran the election through a third-party vendor in 2023, it costed us over $100,000. Expenses rose over to $129,000 when we contracted through Community Resource Services of Colorado. In May of 2022, when we ran the Board of Directors election, it was $54,000. Mm-hmm. So it's significantly less, but there's no way of knowing exactly, just because of the amount of work that goes into it, how many other entities are combining into the election. So for this election, we have Rye Fire and the City of Pueblo. It's also part of it, so they will be splitting the costs. So we're looking at costs of mailing the ballots, costs of staff time of running it, the canvassing of the election, all of that comes together, and then they'll send us an invoice at the end of it. But I would anticipate it somewhere around the $54,000 mark based on prior experience or prior costs.
Can you give us some statistics on participation in previous elections?
I cannot. I do not have those statistics on hand. We could probably pull them up. I know it has not been ideal of what we would like to see, but I know that Brandy Blankenship, our community relations manager, has worked really hard to try to push out information on the upcoming election, on ways in which people can participate. She's been pushing out text alerts. Our business administration team, IT team, has been pushing out stuff on Facebook and our website just to try to get people more informed. So I think that has been helpful, but I do not have those statistics on hand. Do you have anything, Christian?
Did we get as I recall, we had a discussion on whether candidates could put signs on district-owned property, and it was kicked back to the county had to approve it. Have we got a answer on that?
I don't think it was the county. The question was whether or not they had jurisdiction over Pueblo West owned property. That was the question, and I never heard back.
Gotcha. I think in that last conversation that we had, identified that with state statute directing towards county being the appropriate authority for those types of activities, and the question did come up, does that include district-owned property, whether it was zoned as the public lands or the residential examples for it? I think I don't know if we followed up with a question. We could still follow up just to be sure, but I don't think we got direction at that time, and kind of guided candidates towards reaching to the county to be sure, and we didn't take a position of objecting to it.
You might ask her, is there a county attorney?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think so. Cynthia.
Cynthia.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I think, I don't remember if it was you that shared that you had a brief conversation with her after one meeting?
Yeah, I'm the one that asked the question.
But I haven't heard back either.
She was gonna check, because there's obviously a difference between public property that the district has their buildings and whatnot on, but.
So we have a couple of years to work on that, because it's too late at this point.
I guess we're done.
The reason I brought that up is there's been considerable difference of opinion on whether signs could be put up on the county roads right away, even though they've always belonged to the county. Past practice, candidates have put signs on district-owned property. So if we're gonna, unless we can get a definite answer, no, you can't do it, let's rely on past practice and say, I think it'd be a good idea for the candidates to know where some of the district-owned property is, and what better way than to let them find a place to put their sign. Anything else on that? Okay, number 4, Tract 317 update. Sean, your favorite thing.
Thank you, Vice President Mahaney, members of the board. So I'm here to give you an update on the Tract 317. So currently we're preparing a subdivision vacation plat. It is included in your packet. We intended on turning that into the county for review at the beginning of April. However, some title commitment irregularities presented themselves, and we were unable to make that submittal. We're in the process of resolving some of those issues in terms of title of one property in there that appeared to be sold to another owner, which is not truly the case, but we have to follow the paperwork trail and do all of the things that we need to do to clear all that up. During the process of submittal, we had to send out requests for comments from all of the local review agencies and public utility companies, and we did get some significant comments, particularly from Pueblo County Road and Bridge, that requires the district to construct 3 cul-de-sacs at the end of the existing dead-end roadways, and to remove some asphalt and do some minor grading at Enchanted Hills. We're estimating that work to be about $42,000 plus design fees for designing those improvements. We also got some information from Lumens, San Isabel Electric, and Black Hills Energy. stating that they have already installed some utilities within Track 317. And if we move forward with the vacation, we will need to establish some easement by separate instrument to allow those utilities to remain in place. Because we have these improvements on site, now triggers a requirement for the subdivision vacation process of including a supplemental map, shows all of the improvements that are on the site. And right now, our subdivision vacation is about $3,500, and then we'll have some additional costs to cover the supplemental map and the separate instrument easements. So this is just a discussion item only, and so I'm here to answer any questions you might have and to facilitate some board direction on moving forward with the vacation.
When will you know about the location of the utilities?
We're in the process of requesting either utility locates right now and then getting the surveyor back out to survey those back in. So that's probably going to happen next week in terms of telling them to move forward with getting these locates if the board desires. Or not, depending on what you guys would like us to do.
Well, we need to know where they're at, right?
Huh?
We need to know where they're at, correct?
We need to know where they're at in order to make the submittal now that we know that there is something actually there.
Right.
Now that transmitter tower, the water enterprise has,
Yes.
that's where the electricity goes for that, isn't it?
Actually, it looks like they're cutting through the property to get to the other side of the tract. Yes, I think that there is a main that runs through there and a service line that runs to the pole, to the tower, but I don't think that that's the exclusive use. I don't think that's the exclusive use in their master plan because they put in a lot more infrastructure in there than what would be required for that one single use.
So we'll find out more about that at a future date.
Yes.
So remind us, Sean, if you would, that how doing all of this is going to mitigate people driving in there and dumping stuff.
So the vacation in and of itself is not going to mitigate that. It then enables the district to come up with some other creative options to prevent it, whether it's fencing or putting in, some form of blockage to public rights of ways. It just gives us more abilities to try some different things. Right now, we really don't have control over that because we have public rights of ways within Track 317 that we do not actually have authority over. So yeah, indirectly this will assist us in trying to find different ways. In and of itself, it does not.
So the access points are going to be the cul-de-sacs?
Yes.
What do you think? So
yeah,
that gives us the ability to do something at the end of the cul-de-sacs?
Yes, yeah. Whether it's fencing, and you've seen other situations where people put boulders around the edges.
Mm-hmm.
But the perimeter of Track 317 is pretty lengthy. There's lots of different places you can get in. Yeah, I don't know that this is the complete answer, but it pushes us in a position where perhaps we can develop the property the way that it is now intended through the master plan with the water department and with the Parks and Rec department. It's no longer considered for residential development.
I shared earlier that in looking at past minutes in 1999, Track 317 was set aside as open space.
Yes.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, yes. My understanding is that one point in time in the more recent past, Utilities Department looked at doing a vacation for 317, but we never actually went through with it. Is that correct, Jim? Jim's nodding his head.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No. So is the direction to continue to move forward?
Of course.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Number 5, purchase the remaining land and water shares of the reserve at Pueblo West. Jeffrey.
Yes, good
Now,
evening once again.
We had some citizen comments about this, so would you help us address their concerns?
I can have some tie-ins to some of those, yeah. I won't have all those like an HOA, but on the utility side, absolutely.
Okay.
So the board gave us staff direction to pursue the purchase of this after the seller or representative of the owner approached the district. What the deal includes is approximately 504 acres of the undeveloped land there, and 52 paired shares that are Colorado Canal and Lake Meredith. And the agreed upon purchase price is $360,000. So I'm going to make sure I go through all my notes here. So as staff, we've dealt with this with potential projects and developers in my time multiple times a year for at least 7 years and more before that. And there's never been, it always falls through when the seller, a purchaser doesn't want to develop the land as it stated in, I think the agreement was 1999. There was roads that had to be built, water main extensions that had to happen, the subdivision process and everything that goes with it. And it's never happened for a quarter of a century, way longer than a quarter of a decade. So staff has done our due diligence. The owner, the seller, does have 52 paired shares of Colorado Canal Lake Meredith. They are not tied to a wall augmentation plan. Looking at the average water yield of Colorado Canal and Lake Meredith at that time, 25 years ago, the average yield was about half an acre foot or a little bit more. While in 25 years, that's dropped. Wait, I'm sorry. that average acre. The average yield in acre feet was approximately 1. That's dropped now to about half, and there is 0 firm yield. I hope that all makes sense, because I know I mentioned a bunch of numbers at various times tonight. So it used to be average 1 acre foot. Right now it's about half. So, and 0 firm. And to develop land, that's what we go for. That's what the state accepts is firm yield, water that can be counted on even in a dry year. Those water shares didn't provide that in 1999, 1998. They don't provide that now. So from a utilities perspective, it's good not to have 100 more 5-acre parcels up there and have to serve water with water that had 0 firm yield. So that's the goal for utilities, is to get that off of that potential development off the plate, off the table. So additionally, because this all happened this year, this purchase is not in our budget. It would have to come from a budget amendment captured later on. I think it's mid-year is the timing on that. So I can answer any questions. Maybe Robert can help me too. HOA questions I don't have the answer to, but maybe somebody else does.
I just wanted to go over the numbers as well. So we're talking about $340,000 coming from the water enterprise in terms of the purchase price, and $20,000 coming from the general fund.
That is correct.
Which buys the land, so to speak.
And you value the water shares at $340,000, is that correct?
We do. That's an acceptable price. Yeah, a reasonable price. We've seen other prices in that, or other sales in that price range. Yeah, around there.
So with the HOA, so help me understand. You have your own HOA in the tracts that are developed now?
We can answer that if you want us to answer.
Yeah, I'm asking. So how does it affect our sale? Any at all?
Based on what we know right now, the conditions, covenants, and restrictions of the existing HOA do not affect and have not been recorded against the other 504 acres in the development. But we won't know that for sure until we see the title insurance commitment.
Even if it affects us, our purchase of the land doesn't affect them at this point?
Should not.
So the HOA was turned over to the residents in 2018. 2018 because there was only 2 parts of the reserve that were developed, 21 lots. And so all those lots were purchased and they turned it over to the homeowners, and according to the covenants and guidelines, that's when it got turned over to the homeowners and out of the hands of the developer. It wasn't developed because the developer died. That's why. And so, as far as our understanding, the HOA stopped with those 2.
But we just wanted to make sure that if it is developed, it's still developed with our covenants in mind. But it doesn't sound like you're buying it to develop it. It's you're buying it to get out of developing it.
Correct.
Yes.
And that's our hope.
And our other hope is if you do tend to do something later on, not to access it through the reserve, because according to our covenants, no additional traffic is supposed to be made and stuff. So we have 2 cul-de-sacs that have lots that are attached to that land. And the end of Jesse James is attached to that land, along with another parcel is attached to another person's land. So we're just asking if, for some reason, if it's future developed later on,
If it's a
whatever.
park or whatever you
Whatever.
would do, that
make a
please
barrier.
don't access it
Just,
through
you know what I
reserve.
mean? It's just,
Tell them what you got in mind, Brian.
Huh?
Tell them what you got in mind.
That was Doug's little
Oh.
joke. Yeah, so we don't know what's going to happen there. I know that we have looked due to previous discussions about what people wanted to do with that land. We know that they were going to utilize the current cul-de-sacs as access points, basically. So, I can't speak to what we're going to do in the future, but
so that's, those cul-de-sacs are attached to the rest of the houses that are in the reserve that are per the HOA.
Houses that are there now.
Yeah, so there's a cul-de-sac at the end of
Buffalo.
and the end of Indian Paint
Well,
that are part of this land. And then there's a corner on Maverick and Jesse James
yeah.
that's attached to some of the houses in the HOA.
well, I would think that
We want to work with you guys. We don't want to work against you. That's why
Right.
we came.
I would think that we would want to not create any duress or hardship with you on this transaction if it does go through. So I feel pretty confident that the board will try to work to help you guys maintain what you have without
think
impacting you.
Community was mostly concerned that it would be shrunk down to smaller sizes.
Oh, no, that's,
And
The lots? No.
and modular, because
Oh,
we've
no.
got some
No.
put together houses just down the street put
Yeah.
on, and those are, yeah, and so I think that was the biggest concern.
To be honest,
And the access.
and then I'm just speaking for myself. We've been talking about this for a while, but I think we're buying the land because we're paying basically $20,000 for 504 acres. I think that's why we're buying the land.
Yeah, we would have liked that too.
Yeah. And we're trying to do what's best for that area, that specific area.
There's a lot of wildlife in that area and stuff, So I think, honestly, the people that started in the reserve at the beginning, that bought it when it started getting developed, there was a big grand scheme of development that was supposed to be, and you got the civil people coming, or we came in later in the development, and so we're just trying to make sure that it's just conducive for everybody, and that, we're happy that it's not being developed.
But I'm sure if it goes through, if it gets awarded to Parks and Rec for a project, then it would involve the community in that discussion.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
We would
Yeah.
appreciate that.
And that's all
Because-
we're asking, is that we're involved in whatever might happen to it in the future.
And it definitely won't happen tomorrow. I can tell you that. But yeah, I would assume that we would move in that direction.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I think we're done.
Any other questions for me?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Thank you.
All right.
Number 6. For sale water transmission main, IFB 2025 WA 2104.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Robert?
Alrighty. Good evening, Vice President Mahaney, members of the board, Robert Bannum, Deputy Director of Utility Operations again. Here before you for IFB 2025 WA 2104. This is a 18-inch water transmission main that's going to go alongside Purcell, I believe, starting at Parkview and ending up around Fire Station 3. Sorry. And then this is purely for to help out with transmitting water up to the north tanks, as well as potentially helping out with fire flows in that area. With that being said, we went out for a bid, and we had $4.9 million budgeted. With $4.9 million budgeted in the budget this year. The most responsive bid with all three bid alternates is Miller Pipeline in the amount of $2,232,728.45. So well under the anticipated budget costs that we were expecting for this. It is before you guys as a discussion item. I do have the resolution as well, so I stand before you guys for if you guys decide to do anything else. Sorry.
What's the contingency in case they run?
Oh, with the sorry, that is a 10. We asked for a 15% contingency because there is potential for shale and rock over there. We are doing some HDD horizontal drilling. In the amount of $225.45. So that dollar amount that I did tell you guys was the $2,232,000 should include the contingencies as well. Sorry.
Really? So we're all in under 2.3.
Yeah.
And this was in the budget?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Is it better if we do it now?
It's up to you guys. All that does is
I
make
would
it
think so, because we don't know if prices are going to go up.
Yeah.
So I think we better jump on it sooner than later.
And I did attach the resolution. So
I'll make a motion to approve the Purcell Water Transmission Main IFB 2025-WA-2104.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
thank you, board.
What's the depth that the water mains are supposed to be at?
About 4 feet.
That's the bottom of the main, or the, since
That'd
it's
be the top of the pipe.
top of the pipe, 4 feet?
Yep.
And that one in front of the hen house didn't appear to be that deep. What happened?
Was not. It was before me, and I couldn't tell you if they came in there and they cut that intersection down when they redid it, or I don't know. So
The other thing that on that one was they were trying to come up to meet an existing pipe as well.
infrastructure in the ground.
Yeah. So. But, oh, and this is John Martino III. He's our
He's
C&D
our Rusty
manager.
Yeah, we do Rusty.
Sorry, guys.
Welcome aboard,
Thank you.
new Rusty.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, let's see, those were discussion items, weren't they? I'll move that one up to.
Public comments.
Yeah, public comments next. Do we have any online?
Didn't receive it.
Anybody here
Anybody else?
would like to say anything?
Say something.
Not even from the back row back there? Come on. Our big problem, in my opinion, they tell me to keep saying that, we have a lack of public participation. Our elections, we get less than 20% participate. that ends up causing is the board says the public had their choice. They didn't say anything, so we're gonna do what we think is best. So let's encourage people to participate instead of waiting until they say it's too late. Can't do anything. All right. Board members and district manager closing comments. You want to lead us off, Christian?
Sure, thank you, Vice President Mahaney. So one thing I did want to mention, Director Vickers, you asked, I think, about, I was doing projecting out capital projects, getting in a better habit of that. I did want to just, I guess, use that as an opportunity to reinforce that that's part of our strategic plan, that master planning for operational stuff, to be able to do that better. And so I think we are going to meet that intent with it. And I guess absolutely. And I guess the bigger topic, just to share, I'll echo, I think we all appreciate former Director Prohl's service, respect his decision at this. But what I really do want to focus on, at least from my perspective, is in dealing with the seller of the property, Sam Prohl. Everything has been very cogent. Having opportunities to discuss those things at arm's length and be able to go through that process. If he has any concerns or if there anything that comes from the direction the board provided tonight, happy to follow up. And I just have appreciated he has been a very diligent and I think objective and fair person to work with throughout this entire process. So I did want to hopefully support that. I don't think I have any other comments, so I'll turn it back over to you.
Brian Gray.
I have no comments at this time.
Brian Axworthy.
So I'll say that I'm saddened by the fact that Doug felt it necessary to resign. I've dealt with my share of attacks and understand how hard it is to cope with that. Especially since we're more or less volunteers. We don't really get paid for what we do. We do this to benefit our community best we can. I think Doug's done a lot for the district. I think he's very, very knowledgeable and has put a lot of effort towards our water portfolio. That's always super helpful, especially in today's world. I think he's a good man. I feel that this whole situation is unfortunate. But in the end, I'm looking after the taxpayer. It's not my money. So that's how I have to look at the situation and make my determinations. I hope that we can still go out and have a beer or something, or play some golf, or whatever the case might be. And I hope that that he does well. That's all I have to say.
Director Victor.
I'm saddened too that Doug chose to resign. And I wasn't attacking Doug's character or his service, but I firmly believe that we're held to a higher standard as public officials. And I welcome people to question my decision-making. And if I'm doing something that is inappropriate or looks bad, I welcome people to point that out to me. Like I said, I'm sorry that it came to that juncture and he felt like he needed to resign. But again, as Brian said, I'm looking out for the taxpayer. I was elected to look out for them and serve their best interests. And that's all I'm trying to do with everything that I do and say. So that's all I have.
It wouldn't be the first time that somebody has resigned and we didn't accept their resignation. This was a pretty lively discussion, and there are some differences of opinion. Doug's term limited anyway. He would go off of the board May 6th or May 7th. I'd like to see our district manager go have coffee with You can use that coupon I gave you with Doug and you know, it seems like that could be a better way to finish his service. He's been with the district since Columbus landed, practically. Some people think he was here when McCulloch showed up, but Doug's been around a long time. He's been through some hard times with the district, and he's had some good times here lately. So sometimes it's hard to set your personal feelings aside and do what's going to happen anyway. So I'd like to see something be resolved a little more amicably than this heated discussion. And I was a little offended at it being called a clown circus, but you know, at times we do have our things, so that's not uncommon with municipal situations where, like Brian said, we're volunteers. We're really not in it for the money. So anyway, let's move on with that. Let's see. Committee reports. Mr. Vickers, what do you have on the 6A fire sales?
Well, we had the meeting, and basically what it was to bring, there were three new, I believe, three new committee members there. So Ryan spent the time bringing everybody up to speed, telling them what the committee does, what the role of the committee. He introduced Mr. Bryce. So there was no actions were taken, no direction was given. So we look forward to the next meeting to start the ball rolling again.
COA. Keep going.
Let's see. The COA elected new officers. Dory Peterson was elected president. Ace Spriggs was vice president, elected vice president, and Leanna Lowe was elected the secretary. They had 3 variances that they considered, and 9 new single-family homes. So a little bit of building still going on. No commercial properties, and only 6 accessories.
And we have a full board of 5 people?
Yes.
Okay. Pueblo Economic Development Corporation, PEDCO, April 10th.
So not much to report that I can divulge anyway, because it's ongoing negotiations. There's still a push for expediting some energy production in Colorado and meet the needs of folks that would like to move here from a commercial and industrial standpoint. That's about it.
Okay. Announcements. Pueblo West Chamber of Commerce meeting, April 14th, 6 p.m., 781 East Industrial. That's the San Isabel Electric Complex over there, I think.
Correct.
Pueblo West Road Sales Tax Advisory Committee quarterly meeting, April 15th, 4 p.m., 729 East Gold Drive. That's the fire station number 3. Pueblo West Board of Directors Candidate Forum, April 17th, 6:30, Pueblo West High School. That's a couple days from now, 3 days. Tom Sawyer Fishing Derby, April 25th, Cattail Crossing, 8 a.m. It's kind of late to go fishing, but anyway. Pueblo West Metro District Board of Directors meeting, April 28th, 5 p.m. Right here, 356 McCulloch Boulevard, number 103. And this is part of the complex that we lease. Community Roundtable with Director Victors, May 1st, 5 p.m., River of Grace. That's just north of 63 Spalding, isn't it?
That's correct.
So, is any of the other board members gonna be there, or you're
No.
just gonna do that by yourself?
Me on my own. Come and ask questions, whatever.
Is that gonna be?
Try to answer, and maybe I'll drag Christian along. We can answer whatever questions come.
That might be a good idea. Christian, you got time for that?
Anytime, appreciate it.
Yeah. Cinco de Mayo celebration, May 3rd, Civic Center Park, 4 p.m. Actually, May 5th is the actual Cinco de Mayo date, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nobody does anything on the right day anymore.
Yes, it is. It's not Cinco de Ocho.
Ocho de Mayo, yeah. I'll spare you my mayonnaise joke about that. We'll let that go. Mom and Son Turf War, Nerf War, May 10th, 12 p.m., Level Park. Ball field number 2. Bring your own Nerf gun? Yep, all right. Well, considering everything we've done, shall we adjourn for a 5-minute break and then go into executive session, or do we need to go into executive session?
You do still have at least one executive session item
All right.
to consider this evening.
All right, I'll make a motion that we adjourn our regular meeting and go back into executive session for 24-6-4024A Colorado Revised Statutes concerning the purchase, acquisition, lease, transfer, or sale of any real estate, real, personal, or other property interest. And 24-6-4024E Colorado Revised Statutes determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators. And 24-6-4024B Colorado Revised Statutes conferences with an attorney for the public entity for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions. These will be discussions related to the reserve and discussions in policy regarding settlement claims involving water service at 330 South El Sobriante Drive and the applicability of work product privilege to Cora requests.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to go into executive, to
All in favor?
adjourn regular meeting and go into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
With a
Aye.
5-minute break. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let's take a 5-minute break.